Hi, my name's Fiona. I'm an artist and I like to think I'm fairly productive. So I do this stuff on YouTube. I have an Etsy shop where I design and sell products. I do a lot of in-person art fairs and markets. Sorry, there's a dog here. I do a lot of in-person art fairs and markets and stuff like that. And I also have a part-time job during the week as well. However, key point is I don't think I'm a naturally productive person at all. My true state is to get distracted extremely easily and stare at my phone all the time. But the thing is about being an artist or an illustrator or a writer or something like that is that it's a very self-directed type of career. And if you want to do well, you've got to be pretty driven and self-disciplined. You've got to be able to make yourself sit at that desk every day and work, even when it seems like you aren't necessarily getting anywhere. You've got to be really productive. But please don't think that this is something where you just naturally are a productive person or you aren't. It really is a skill that you can learn. I've done lots of research over time into different productivity techniques. I've tried and tested what works well and figured out how to make myself do stuff when I don't want to do stuff. I want to be in bed playing Fire Emblem. But yeah, so please take this with a pinch of salt. I know not everyone's the same and what works for me might not work for you. But on the chance it does, I hope that this helps. And in the spirit of productivity, maybe you can do something you need to do while I talk, you know, have me on in the background, do some drawing. Okay, let's get into it. I want to start with talking about the 80% rule. I think I've talked about this on my channel before. So if you're a perfectionist who gets sort of frozen by the perfectionism, this one is for you. I think I originally heard of the 80% rule in a Hank Green video. I don't know if he's the one who came up with it or not though, but I'll link that video. The idea is basically, let's say your art to-do list is really long. You have to do a painting for your painting class. Maybe you're wanting to quickly make some fan art of a new show while it's still trending. Maybe you've got a graphic novel idea that you want to get started with and it's all just overwhelming you. Please let me just take some of that off your shoulders with this. Just do everything you need to do to about 80% of your maximum capacity, just 80%. So if you're finishing off a painting and it's looking really good, but you're kind of feeling like you want to fidget with it and you want to tweak this, that and the other, just stop there. This is a funny one because it kind of sounds like a lazy mindset, but in practice it ramps up your productivity like crazy. It sounds lazy, but you're getting so much more done than a perfectionist would, so it's kind of the opposite of lazy. It's just not sustainable to expect everything you draw to be your best ever thing. So this is how you're going to avoid burnout, especially on big projects like comics, where people are only going to spend, 1 or 2 seconds looking at each frame anyway. My experience from knowing and being around artists is that their standards for their own work are incredibly high, much higher than necessary, much higher than anyone else is going to care about or notice at all. It's so common to just be frozen by that. And I'm betting that your 80% is really great. And the thing is, if you keep pushing and pushing for that 100%, you might even never finish the painting or whatever it is. And an 80% thing that is completed and ticked off and launched out into the world is so much better than a potential 100% thing that just sits unfinished for ages. Getting an art piece completely perfect to your own standards takes such a disproportionate amount of time that most of the time it's just not going to be worth it. Like maybe it takes you 8 hours to get an artwork up to 80% good, but then it'll take you another 15 hours to get it from 80 up to 100% good. You know, done is beautiful. That's one of my favourite phrases. Finished is better than perfect. That's another good one. Perfect is the enemy of done. That's another one. But just get your art out there, basically. I promise you are going to get so much more done with so much less stress with this mindset. Like if your goal is to get your webcomic finished or to get yourself through an intense art degree course, you've got to accept that not everything you make is going to feel like your absolute best thing you've ever made. And the funniest thing about this is that as an artist who's been on social media for years and selling art for years, it's always the stuff that I didn't really try that hard with that absolutely pops off. I can never predict it. Like a painting that I spent weeks on will just flop and then a scribble will go viral for some reason. One of the absolute best-selling products I have in my Etsy shop is a pin badge that's based on a doodle that I did in about 3 or 4 minutes tops while, on scrap paper while watching TV, which is not me bragging about, oh, I made this amazing thing in 3 minutes. It's more just that sometimes simple is better. And honestly, plenty of people are going to find your 80% good thing better than your 100% good thing, if that makes sense, because what good is so subjective. Another way of thinking about the same idea is the 100 Pots story, which you might have heard of. I think I read this in Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist, which is a great book, by the way. But if you haven't heard this story, it goes something like this. There's a pottery class, and the teacher divides up the class into two groups. So group 1 has to work all semester to make the most perfect piece of pottery they can, the most perfect pot. Whereas group 2 are told to just make as many pots as possible. They do not have to be good, and they're just going to get graded on the sheer number of the amount of pots that they make. And then at the end of the semester, group 2 has made 100 pots, and group 1 has made just one that they've tweaked and fussed with for weeks. But the best looking pot is one of group 2's 100. It's not the single supposedly perfect pot that group 1 made. You know, like if you spend months and months working on a painting, just one painting to get it perfect, but someone else is churning out 100 paintings in that same time, they are probably going to have made a better painting. This is like the tragic irony of perfectionism. It doesn't even work. You get better art and you get more of it done by just moving fast and not second guessing. If you get halfway through your painting and you don't like it, that's fine. You can bin it. You're not emotionally attached to it because you've made like 3 this week, you know? You can make another one, 80%. Okay, this next one is me calling myself out. Get some social media blocks set up. If you're an artist, you probably follow other artists on Instagram and TikTok and stuff. And I'm sure you've heard it all before about how social media only ever shows you, you know, the absolute best edited highlights of other people's lives, and the art world is no different. And that's really damaging. There's the saying, comparison is the thief of joy, which is very accurate in this situation, I think. It's just so demotivating to open your phone first thing in the morning and pour into your eyeballs a curated collection of the best works of some of the best artists in the world. Like, when you actually say it like that, it sounds, you know, it's no wonder that Instagram can make us feel a little bit rubbish sometimes. I think humans evolved to be in communities of like 200 people max. That's what we had for 99% of history. That's like the max number of people our brains can cope with comprehending. And then suddenly having access to millions of people and every thought they have, everything they've ever drawn and painted, we just can't cope with it. It's really overloading for us. So I think social media is not great in large quantities. It's too much input and overstimulation, and it's not good for creativity. I am aware of the irony of me saying this on a social media website right now, but I think you get what I mean. But yeah, the point is it's not great for your creativity, because not just because of the completely overwhelming amount of skill and competition, but also because of how incredibly overstimulating these apps are designed to be. These apps are deliberately designed to be as addictive as possible, because the more hours you spend on there, the more money those companies make from ads. So they have teams of engineers dedicated to making you spend as much time as possible scrolling as they can get out of you, which is all time you're not spending drawing. If you look up your screen time hours on your phone, it's kind of harrowing. Like, imagine that was all time that you spent sketchbooking or developing ideas. It's very tragic to think about. And if you're on TikTok for hour after hour and your brain is just getting used to seeing one 9-second video after another, you know, like loads of jokes and flashing colours and silly noises, and that's what your brain gets used to, then when you try to sit down to try and quietly attempt a painting that's going to take 5 hours of quiet focus and concentration, your brain is just not going to be able to do that. You've burned out your dopamine receptors. And the process of slowly putting together a painting doesn't have that constant dopamine reward that your brain has gotten used to getting from quickly scrolling through these videos. I know social media can be amazing for artists in lots of ways. It allows people to find their audience and start their careers. So I'm definitely not saying go cold turkey and give it up altogether. But what I do personally is I set time limits for different apps on my phone. Like for Instagram, I've got a 30 minutes a day daily limit, which is enough for me to post a picture and then maybe later on reply to some people. And then after that, I'm completely locked out until tomorrow. Which is great for me because I've got no self-control, like I need to be kicked out of these apps. But yeah, there are other settings you can do where you let yourself into your apps only after working hours and stuff like that. I know iPhones have a built-in function that allows you to set timers on apps like this, but it's skippable and I would always just ignore it and keep scrolling. So I found an app called Opal that allows you to just set hard blocks that you absolutely cannot get out of. Not spun, I just think it's great. because of how strict it is. You can't even delete the Opal app while it's blocking. It's really harsh, which is great if you're anything like me, because I was spending horrific numbers of hours on my phone. But yeah, Opal, it's expensive. I think it was about £70, which is kind of a lot for an app, but I've found it really worth it for me because I've just gotten so many hours of my life back. My art productivity is way up, my overall mood is just much calmer and happier. But if you don't want to spend that much, I'm sure there are some different blocking apps you can look into, but it really is worth putting some kind of time limits in place on your phone or your computer or whatever it is that you're finding yourself getting distracted with during the day. Okay, moving on to the Pomodoro Method. I'm such a big fan of this, I think it's great. You've probably already heard of this, so I'll not linger on it too long. But the basic concept is to set a timer for 25 minutes of really focused work, and then 5 minutes break, and then repeat. It's so simple, but it works really, really well. You can do this for writing or drawing or anything you need to do. 25 minutes doesn't sound like that long to focus before you get a break, but the beauty of it is that it's only 25 minutes, which is why it works so well. So when you go to pick up your phone and get distracted, you think to yourself, oh, it's only another 15 minutes until my next break. I'll just do it then. Rather than sitting yourself down and saying you must work on this really hard thing for 2 hours solid, which, you know, you'll just break and give in. You can tell yourself that this next mini break is coming up really, really soon, so I'll focus till then. It's like a sprint, you know? It sounds like you're taking loads of breaks, but after 4 of these cycles, you've done an hour and 40 minutes of really focused work, and you can get like so much done in that amount of time. You'll be really, really surprised by it if you give it a try. For me, this is the only way I can do really deep work, like super detailed digital painting that I'm getting sick of. This is how I make myself do it. And a key part of making this work, I think, is being really strict with the breaks. So if the break hits when you're mid-flow on something really interesting, you should still make yourself get up for that break, because then you'll hit the ground running for the next 25 minutes and you'll keep the momentum up. I think it also works best if in your 5-minute breaks you do something totally different as well. Like get up and do something physical, like have a little dance or make a coffee or like go pet the dog or something for a bit. I have read that the Pomodoro Method is supposed to be really effective for people who have ADHD. I can't report on that personally, but apparently the short, quick-fire rhythm of it is good for ADHD. It's really effective. So if that's you, that's probably worth a try. So if you want to do the Pomodoro Method, you can either set the 25-minute timers yourself, or what I find easier is just having a Pomodoro timer website or app running in the background, and it gives you a little ding when it's time for a break. I think there are study background noise videos on YouTube as well that have got the Pomodoro timers built in. But yeah, I think it's really great. And I want to end this video with emphasising that even with your 80% and your Pomodoro, you're still not a robot, and it's okay if you have some days that are less productive than others. It's also okay if you aren't spending exactly 8 hours a day on productive, focused work. There have been studies that have shown that people who work in traditional office jobs only do about 3 hours of really solid work a day, even if they're at the office for, 8 or 10 hours. And that's okay. We're not machines. That's just how we work. You have really high standards for yourself of exactly how many solid hours of work you feel you need to do every day. That's just not always going to be realistic, and you're setting yourself up for burnout. So yeah, make sure to be kind to yourself, because there's no point in ultra optimizing your days to maximum productivity, because it'll just break down and then you won't be productive at all. Ideally, we want our art to be a sustainable, lifelong thing, not something we train ourselves to hate by hitting ourselves with a stick. And beating yourself up never really achieves anything anyway. But yeah, thanks for listening. I hope this helps. If you take just one thing away from this video, I hope it's the 80% thing, because out of everything I've said, that has been the most drastic for me in terms of getting stuff done. It's really improved my relationship with my art, and but yeah, I'll link Hank Green's original video about that, because he's explained it better than me and it is really useful. If you have any art productivity tips that have really worked for you that I haven't mentioned in this video, please share them in the comments and we can all help each other out. But yeah, okay, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.